Mariner Books and HarperAudio present The Bad Angel Brothers, a novel by Paul Theroux, performed by Joe Knezevich. To Sheila. I had to admit that, to me, each person's worst instinct seemed the most sincere. André Gide, The Immoralist. A brother is as easily forgotten as an umbrella. James Joyce, Ulysses. Part 1. 2 lunches. 1. The rejection ritual. You're seldom suspicious when you're happy, and so I didn't realize that the whole awful business was about to start when Vida said, "It's been ages since you had lunch with Frank. Why don't you two grab a bite?" Whenever Frank was asked a question he hated to answer, he'd say, "Look in the mirror and ask yourself that." I was tempted today, but I smiled at my lovely wife while I contemplated my hateful brother. As the kind of lawyer he was, Frank had a whopper license, and it helped, because he told awfully long, rather dubious stories. It was sometimes the same story, or nearly so. Now and then it was one I had told him, and he later told it back to me, inserting himself, with embellishments, not remembering it was mine. Talkers who repeat themselves pay no attention to their listeners. They're at an imaginary podium, waving their arms, broadcasting to a crowd, and are usually themselves bad listeners, if not completely deaf. Many people found Frank's stories amusing. Others called him a bore and said, "How do you stand him?" "He's a high-functioning asshole," I wanted to say, but instead, to be non-committal, "He's my big brother." I was not a talker. I was the elusive brother, the geologist who'd left home to be a rock hunter and an adventurer in the extractive industries. Yet I was often fascinated by Frank's stories. You don't have to like someone to listen. When I was in the mood, I heard him repeat them, noting how he changed them in the telling. What he left in, what he omitted, the exaggerations, the irrelevancies, the new details, the whoppers. The nun who caught him smoking. In one version, she told him to confess it as a mortal sin and lingered outside the confession box to hear him bare his soul to the priest. In another, she forced him to kneel on a broomstick a whole day as punishment. In the one I liked best, the nun handed him his unsmoked half-pack of cigarettes and made him eat them. But I knew that because of wheezy lungs, Frank had never smoked. The one about his being brutally murdered in Florida by a drug gang, his bullet-riddled body discovered in a Miami mansion, his face mangled beyond recognition. Our parents got the call on a weekend when Frank was on vacation, and they were devastated. Turned out the man had Frank's stolen passport on him. A great story, but untrue. Another, his saving the life of my high school friend, Melvin Urich, whom he'd found bleeding at a campsite in the local woods, Urich having gashed his hand with a hunting knife. In Frank's telling, by rescuing Urich, he'd altered the course of history because later, Urich became a billionaire as a pioneer innovator in digital media. The story was mine. It was I, hiking with Urich, who'd staunched the blood on his gashed hand and helped him home. The part about Urich becoming a billionaire was true, though. I listened to know Frank better, because even as a child I found him tricky, cruel, dangerous, and unreliable, as well as, people can sometimes be their opposites, direct, kindly, reassuring, and helpful. There was so much of Frank, and he was so contradictory, the whole of him so overwhelming, I had to deal with him in pieces. Although he made a convincing enough pretense of being my friend, I knew he didn't like me. He was a local hero, Frank Belanger, Esquire, injury law, a successful attorney in our town of Littleford. Because of our name, school kids are such mockers of names, we Belanger brothers were known as the Bad Angel Brothers. Frank was a tough opponent, but a good ally. Very wealthy from the accumulation of contingency fees from personal injury and medical malpractice suits. Whiplash windfalls, he called them. He made no secret of his ambition, crowing to me when we were kids, "I
Sample complete. Ready to continue?